Welcome back to another YouTube video. On today's video, guys, I am going to be doing a review on the new Transformers movie, Transformers Rise of the Beast. I decided to do a full review on this movie, even though I was really leaning towards a short review, just because there was enough to talk about this movie other than just, I enjoyed it. It was pretty enjoyable. I'd go watch it. I would still like to make this a little bit quicker, though, a little bit more quicker of a review. So, real quick, if you have any suggestions for new videos, let me know in the comment section down below. And coming up next week, we obviously got the new Flash movie. I'm going to be watching that as early as possible, getting a review out and an initial reaction as soon as possible, so stay tuned for that. And then, depending on the reviews, I may go see the Elemental movie as well. So that's what's going to be coming up next week. Otherwise, let's just cut straight to the chase here. Transformers Rise of the Beast. What do I think of it? So first of all, just kind of a prologue or whatever you want to say. I am honestly not too big of a fan of the Transformers franchise. I've never really kept too up to date on it. As a little kid, I was, never into the toys or the animated show or anything like that. And I was never too big of a fan of the Michael Bay films or anything like that. But from what I've seen of the Transformers franchise, I think this movie is pretty refreshing, honestly. I didn't even see the Bumblebee when that came out either, which was the most recent Transformers movie. But from what I've seen from this movie, I'd say it's a pretty refreshing movie. I know that the Transformers franchise has seen much, much worse, and I think this one is fairly refreshing. And I think it took some of that positive reception of the Bumblebee movie into deep consideration, or not into deep consideration, but into consideration in this movie. And that's where some of the main positives for this movie come in. So getting into the positives, I know I kind of made that a little bit more confusing than it needed to be, but I think this movie has a perfect balance of, characterization that was present in the Bumblebee movie, and that huge spectacle that Michael Bay made this franchise popular on. So I think there's a perfect balance there, and just enough characterization to where there's actually something worth talking about, because I think if that was gone, I don't think I would need to make this review. It'd just be a schlocky fun movie that you watch for purely the enjoyment of the action sequences, and then you move on from there. Which, sometimes I wish that was the case, because it would make reviewing movies a lot easier. But it made for, I guess it made for a better movie overall, so that's a good thing. So yeah, I like that this movie actually does have some substance to it, and it's not just schlocky, fruitless fun. And I think there's a nice balance there. Although there's a few issues that I have, and I'll talk about them later. I do like the main character in this movie, Noah Diaz, the main human character, I should say. I like him and his brother in this movie. I think they have a good relationship, and some of his homeboys that are shown in this movie as well. They make for some funny scenes. I like the main Autobot in this movie, Mirage, who's played by Pete Davidson. Now, usually, I'm not a big Pete Davidson fan. I think he's kind of unlikable sometimes, but I think he brings a fun, energetic character to Mirage in this movie that is kind of ties well with the serious character of Optimus Prime, who's like super uptight in this movie for whatever reason. He's like super concerned for keeping the Autobots safe and things like that. And so I know, like, some people have said, like, he's usually not like that. He usually doesn't really say much. He's just kind of Optimus Prime, he's there to be cool. But in this movie, he actually has kind of a story to him, and kind of a internal conflict to him. So I thought that was kind of interesting. I think other than that, the only other positives I have to say are pretty much the obvious ones. I think this movie has some good humor. It kind of leans on the MCU humor side, but I think it works fine in this movie. It's pretty frequent, but it doesn't really bother me very much, so I'm not going to go any further with that. Obviously, this movie is enjoyable. Action sequences are good. Final battle is good. So, I'd say it's worth watching in theaters if you're a Transformers fan. But other than that, you could probably wait for it to come on streaming. And so, yeah, those are pretty much the main positives. Moving on to the mixed category, and I kind of feel bad because I don't want to put this in the negative category because it doesn't, like, bring it down very far for me. But I'm not a huge fan of this, like, side character who's like this. She's like this architectural nerd or whatever, and she's kind of the one that she's like Ramsey or like Tej in the Fast and Furious franchise, where they're always the one to like, do all the high tech stuff or like unlock things or like get them into a certain area or whatever. She's kind of like that character for comparison, but she's like this architectural nerd. She really knows her history very well and stuff like that. I'm not a huge fan of her character, not because she's unlikable or anything like that, but I think she's almost just there as kind of a plot device for them to be able to do certain things. And they like don't even care how obvious it is. Like, we'll be in the middle of a battle sequence. It even happened in the final battle sequence where she's like unlocking something or working on like, putting something together, and it's just like, why isn't anybody trying to go after her right now? It's like all the other time they're trying to capture her, but like when she's actually doing something important that we're like here for, they're not going after her for some reason. So I don't know, it didn't bother me too much, which is why I put it in the mixed category. But I don't know, I wasn't a huge fan of that, so I just kind of wanted to get that out of the way. Finally, moving into the negatives, again, like, I really hate to put these as negatives, but I mean, I guess it's something that they could have done better, and I wish they would have done. So, like, yeah, these are really just nitpicks. They don't really drag this movie down super far for me. But I wish they would have spent a little bit more, or I wish they would have shortened the amount of time to introduce stuff at the beginning of the movie. They spend like a half hour on introducing our main human character, Noah. And I think they could have honestly shortened it down to like 15, 20 minutes instead of a half hour. And also in that half hour, they introduced the nerd girl, side chick, whatever, as well. And again, I think they could have shortened that up a little bit so that we would have had more time for other stuff and action sequences and things like that. Another thing is, this movie is obviously called Rise of the Beast. The way it advertises itself is the primal Transformers, not just the Autobots and things like that. And I think this movie spends a little bit more time on the Autobots than it does on the primal characters. Like, most of the primal characters, we have like one introduced in like the middle of the movie, and then most of the other ones are like introduced in like the final act of the movie. And there isn't even a whole lot of them either. Like, when we open up this movie, we see like the primal Transformers and things like that, but then we don't come back to them until like the final act, where they're actually like playing a role in the movie, not just as an introduction kind of thing where like it's at a different time period and things like that. So I wish they would have put them more front and center rather than Optimus Prime still kind of being the lead role. I think they should have put the primal robots more front and center and had the Autobots kind of sidelined in this movie. I know that the Autobots are obviously an important part of the Transformers franchise. That's why people come back to them, because they have they pick and choose their favorites and things like that. I know for me, I really like Bumblebee. But with the way that this movie is advertised, I think they should have put them more front and center, so that it would have been more as it's advertised. And I think those are kind of the main negatives. I guess a few more nitpicks here. I think the villain, your pretty average villain in the Transformers franchise. He's exactly what you would expect. Now, apparently he had like this bigger entity who like eats planets and things like that, but they never like show him in this movie. I was hoping that we would have actually been fighting that like planet-eating villain or whatever. I guess our antagonist, but I guess we won't do that until like the next movie or whatever. I don't know. But instead, like, our main antagonist is just this like Optimus sized like prime sized Transformer. And so I don't know. Like, in the trailers, like, they were like, this guy eats planets, so he's like much bigger than a planet or whatever. So I'm thinking that we're gonna be going after this dude, but no, it's just one of his like henchmen that comes down to Earth to do all the work for him. So I don't know, kind of a little bit disappointing, and so it just made for a pretty average antagonist. Now he actually has a lot of like conflict with Optimus Prime in this movie, where like they both really, really just want to kill each other. So I thought that was kind of cool. And I actually liked some of his sidekicks as well. I thought they were pretty cool as well. So yeah, I mean, I guess that wasn't really a negative, but a little bit disappointing that they advertised that in the trailers, and instead it was just one of his henchmen that we were fighting in this movie. So I don't know, a little bit disappointing to me. There's also a lot of like fake out deaths in this movie. Like not a lot, but there's like a few fake out deaths in this movie that I don't think were very necessary, where it was like, you're not gonna kill him. I know you're not gonna kill him. Like you literally, it's either we've had this character for long enough to where like we know we're not gonna kill him, or it's like we just introduced this character. Why would we kill him now? And there's also like this goofy scene at the ending of the movie where I guess the best way that I could do this without putting in spoilers is at the ending of the movie, they try to integrate the human characters as best as possible to have them like play a role in actually like fighting the villain in this movie. And the way that they do it for our main character is really goofy to me. Like, I'm not going to go any further than that. You'll know what I mean when you get here, when you watch this movie. But I think they try to integrate the human characters like forcefully, and it just doesn't work. It just ends up coming out goofy. It's like, obviously they're not meant for fighting these huge robots and stuff like that. It's meant for the robots to be fighting each other. So I don't know. I wish they would have found something else to do with the characters other than what they did, because it ended up just being pretty goofy to me. But otherwise, yeah, I think that's pretty much it for Transformers Rise of the Beast. I really like how this movie concluded. I think it sets up for a pretty good sequel, so I'm excited for it. It's very enjoyable, or not like super enjoyable, like not the best thing I've ever seen, but it's enjoyable enough. If you're a Transformers fan, you'll get a kick out of this. I think it'll be quite refreshing for you. But if you're not like, too into movies, or you don't watch movies very frequently, I mean, I would say you could probably just wait for this one to come on streaming to watch it. But yeah, Transformers Rise of the Beast, perfectly fine, refreshing movie, I would say. Not really much more to say. So, Transformers Rise of the Beast, what will I be giving this movie? On Rotten Tomatoes, I believe I gave it a 3.5 out of 5 stars, just because I thought it was a perfectly average movie. So I think I would give it a solid, I think I'll give it a solid 7 out of 10. There is a few flaws here and there that I think are kind of inherent in the some of them are pretty inherent in the Transformers franchise, but also a few that I think could have been easily fixed. So, Transformers Rise of the Beast, I'm giving it a 7 out of 10. Enough talking here. I tried to make this a more quicker review, but obviously I rambled on. That's going to be it. Stay tuned for the future reviews, and let me know of any suggestions in the comment section down below. Other than that, like and subscribe, guys, and I will see you next time.